Hello, my name's Naomi Hunter. I'm the leader of the Saskatchewan Green Party and MLA candidate for Regina Elphinstone Centre. I want to talk today a little bit about all of you. I know that traditionally we would talk about ourselves, but I'm really excited about the vision of what Regina Elphinstone Centre can look like in the next 10 years. I envision a city where the green energy and the green platform has already been implemented. I see us with a solar panel on every roof in our riding, and the people of our riding enjoying the lower costs of energy immediately and having a higher means of income because of guaranteed livable income. I see everyone in the town that we call Where the Bones Are Piled, Askanaka Astegi, as having a higher standard of life. In Regina Elphinstone Centre, I see people every day on the doorsteps who tell me that they're living on as little as $600 a day on the said program, or $600 per month. That's clearly inadequate to manage to pay rent and also have enough to live. I want to see a guaranteed livable income where everyone's receiving the $2,000 a month that we as Canadians decided was needed when the CERB came in. This is completely possible. We can dream to end poverty and make it a reality in our city. I feel that in an era of a climate crisis, plans that talk about 2035 and 2050 are like planning to fail. We need to have set target limits that are indeed challenging, but we'll make sure that we have a livable world for our children. 60% target reductions of our CO2 emissions within 4 years and 100% renewable within 10 is what we need to do in order to live up to the report of the IPCC, and anything less is simply not enough. I don't want to argue with Regina's Renewable City Plan, but 2050 is decades too late. The Green Party, having a seat in government, would make sure that there is more than just two views represented in our government. True democracy would be served by knowing that everybody has a voice. I'm a down-to-earth person who is really relatable to the people of Regina Elphinstone Centre. When you look at any of our messaging for the Saskatchewan Green Party or any of the leaflets that I have dropped off at people's doors, it has my personal phone number on, and people are shocked every single day when they phone up and say, "Oh, I didn't expect to get the leader of the party. I was just calling to get a sign on my lawn." That is the kind of responsible, responsive leadership that I offer. And I look forward to representing the people given the opportunity in the legislature in Regina. Thank you very much, and I look forward to getting to know all of you better tonight.
Municipalities across Saskatchewan face significant budget challenges due to both the COVID pandemic and infrastructure deficits. How will you work to ensure that Regina is able to access provincial and federal funding to cover its priorities? And first person to speak on this is Naomi Hunter from the Green Party.
One of the things that's happened in our province is that the federal government has at different times been willing to offer us a lifeline in order to make sure that needed social programming and things that would further the quality of life for residents, especially in our centre, were kept available. The federal government was willing to help with money to keep the STC going. Instead, the Sask party chose to shut it down anyway, even though we were offered a lifeline to keep this needed service going. This is something that I know my family used the STC often. It's how we took family holidays out to see my family on the coast. It's how we traveled. My children both took the STC from Regina up to our family farm to help at harvest. And this is something that has really impacted the lives, especially of poor people, since it was shut down. As well, there was federal money offered to help with a pool that we needed built in Regina. And the Green Party definitely would have accepted that help from the federal government. As well, though, right now when federal transfer payments come through, only 10% are made available to municipalities. And municipalities must otherwise rely purely on taxation. They are responsible for all of the infrastructure that any municipality needs. So in order for Regina to become a fully transitioned city, living off of clean energy and having the trees we need in order to have an urban forest and all those other things, the cost of that under this current program would fall squarely on the shoulders of our municipality. The Green Party would up those federal payments over immediately so that municipalities have more control over their money. To me, this is a really logical step. So many, even though I'm running provincially, so many green concepts actually implement the best on a municipal level. So making sure that municipalities have the ability to enact good policy because they have the money to put it in place without going into debt, which often happens, is really, really key to seeing Regina become fully renewable. I still am running on something that the Greens have run on for years. We want to see a solar panel on every roof in Regina, every roof in the province. We have the highest amount of solar in the country, and it would be a natural thing for Saskatchewan to be relying more heavily on solar instead of cutting it like the Sask Party did in favor of a nuclear secretariat that would take over 10 years to put in place. This is something that as Greens we would prioritize, making sure that we have that good clean technology done in a safe way that would also benefit people with lower utility rates right away. Thank you.
This motion commits the City of Regina to become a 100% renewable energy city by 2050. To achieve this, the city will need to work with the provincial and federal governments and with provincial crown corporations. If elected, how would you help the City of Regina achieve its renewable city goal? And first up on that question is Naomi Hunter from the Green Party.
Hello, that's such a great question. I have been to quite a few of the meetings about making Regina a renewable city, and the most consistent thing that I keep saying every time I get a chance to speak is that the very first thing that I would do as a provincial government is change that timeline. 2050 simply is too late, and we need to move that up. The climate clock that's ticking down the hours, minutes, and days that we have left to deal with this crisis, and it is a crisis. It's not something that we can just deal with as business as usual or hope anymore, is 7 years. So we need to change that timeline to 10 years at the most. So that'll be the first thing. But as far as what things I think would be most important, and that would be, of course, sustainable transportation options. Right now, Regina's city transit can use a lot of improvement. We need to switch over to clean energy as our transportation. We need more fast charging stations. We need to encourage people to use options like City Bus. The City Bus needs to have more efficient routes and be accessible to everyone. And we need to encourage options like the Regina car share that I'm a member of. 40 of us actually share different vehicles. There's one parked behind my house, and these options are available in Regina. We can encourage more biking and walking as well, making our communities so that there is access, like in North Central. It's a food desert, as has been brought up already. Great point, Mira. This is something we can do something about as both a provincial and a municipal government. There have been cases where the provincial government and the municipal government have got together and they've opened their own healthy grocery store so that people are able to walk within their community and make sure they have access to good healthy food. This is a really green option. Also, due to the plight of Dutch elm disease in our city, so many of the trees that have been planted have had to be cut down due to disease. There are certainly options where we can plant many trees and make an urban forest. This also helps to decrease heat in the summertime and makes for a more enjoyable community for those of us that live here. I would say that many cities have already gone to 100% renewable, and they've done it in different areas like electricity, heating, cooling, or their transportation sectors. But we need to do that on all of these areas in Regina, and in fact through our entire province. We need to deal with leaky building syndrome. This is an area Saskatchewan is very cold, and with government we can use the carrot or the stick and provide incentives for people to retrofit their homes. This is easily doable and something I remember as a rebate program from my youth. Thank you. That would be a big old no, and I have the full support of my party on that. We, of course, are concerned about the workers who work in this industry. I have 3 pipeline workers who are running as candidates in the Green Party during this election. They too are worried about a livable world for their children. They want to see a kind and caring transition over to jobs that make sense, that the pipeline would be a natural fit for. Pipeliners, many of the same skill set, works quite well for wind technology. Oil and gas workers, we've seen situations in Alberta, just next door, where old oil and gas wells that have been abandoned have been turned over to geothermal. The same workers that set those up and were servicing them already when they were oil and gas have transitioned into the same people who now look after the geothermal. There are solutions. Of course, we can't leave any of the people behind. We need to make sure that a first priority is offering options, making sure that we have a guaranteed livable income, so that as people transition into other jobs, they have something to fall back on. A guaranteed livable income is set up for exactly the kind of situation that solving the climate crisis presents us with. People will be able to go back to school, retrain, and while I know that everyone always says, but I don't want to do another job, I've loved what I've done my entire life, I too have been in that position. I thought I was going to run restaurants forever, and I have, through time and flexibility, ended up doing a variety of jobs in my life. So while I understand these things are difficult, when people were using horse and buggies and then quit that, all those people who serviced and made horseshoes and other things to do with horse and buggies did find other work. So I see us moving forward and still looking after the people who work in the industry. Thank you. Well, this question took me a little bit off guard. The Greens don't accept any corporate or union donations. We're mainly funded by small $10 donations from individuals. And I totally agree with Mira. I'm really excited that the NDP is moving forward on that. It's something that I think we need to take the big money out of politics, level the playing field, and go back to the good old days when politics was about what people had to say and not about how many billboards they could afford to put up and how many TV ads they could put out. I mean, good old-fashioned forums like this used to be how politicians got their word out. And I think that Saskatchewan certainly would benefit from seeing a political system that limited the amount of political spending that was available to candidates and put some rules in place about this. So I'm really, really happy and supportive of the NDP's motion on that. It's something the Greens have as our policy and are 100% on board with. So when we're elected, I look forward to working with the NDP on that policy. Thank you.
How do you envision the provincial government's relationship with First Nations? Can you name the Indigenous groups that you have reached out to and worked with during your campaign?
During this election campaign, I have traveled all of Saskatchewan and stopped in all 61 ridings. I have visited numerous First Nations communities and received a lot of input, and we have 16 Indigenous candidates this election, so 25% of our candidate slate. And I think that that kind of representation is really important, because white settler people shouldn't be in charge of making the sorts of legislation that are needed to move forward in reconciliation. I absolutely feel that it's really important that we see reflected in our democracy everybody who is part of our society. So that's something that I'm really, really dedicated to. And I believe that rather than what I've often heard politicians say is that they're going to go and they're going to listen to people as to what is needed, I would instead say that we should be implementing the many recommendations that are already available. We have the Murder Missing Women's Investigation Report. We have Jordan's Principle. We have the recommendations of the United Nations, which Saskatchewan and Canada signed on to over 10 years ago and have done absolutely nothing about, which would bring everyone up to a level playing field. And this is something that, I mean, we've made commitments to end poverty as a country, as a province. These are things that we absolutely can do. We can end injustice. We can decide as a society that we're going to be an equitable people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naomi. I would have benefited greatly from more personal interactions with my educators. And with a pandemic putting children in close proximity at risk, what will each party do to reduce class sizes?
Thank you for that question. Saskatchewan was already suffering an education crisis before COVID-19 hit. And I attended a protest shortly before the province went into lockdown. And teachers were already begging for more supports in the classroom, lower classroom sizes, talking about the extreme stress they were under trying to provide the best possible education and care for our children. After quarantine happened and the entire province ended up learning and going to work from home or taking a leave of absence, depending on people's situation, we had a very long time period where I and numerous other people were extremely hopeful that when the Sask Party announced the back to school plan for the children, that they would have addressed some of these initial concerns. Instead, what we saw was that the Sask Party basically announced a no plan. It was pretty much exactly the same as what they had already put out before lockdown, and it was clearly inadequate. They had many opportunities to see what was being done across the province. I, for one, really like many of the things that we've seen some of the schools individually put in Saskatchewan, but I think that I would have liked to see more option for distance learning, for immediately reducing class sizes. I would have liked to see the government put in place that students would go half of them one day and half another, so that there would be a desk in between people each day, and that they would have the option to learn from home every second day with further supports and provided internet and computers, whatnot, so that the students were able to access that help, that work from home, because not everyone has a computer in their home. Like we know, in my house, my children are using my laptop right now. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Naomi.
Thank you. As you go to vote on October 26, I'd like you to imagine what one green voice in our legislature could mean for you and your families. A move away from the status quo. We've seen the dynasties that have ruled this province for many years and what they can do already. The Liberals, of course, were legendary in this province at one time. The NDP have held power for up to 10 years at a time and have held the riding of Regina Elphinstone Centre for as long as any of us can remember. The Sask Party has also been in power for 13 years, and before them the Conservatives had their turn. Electing a Green Party representative would be legendary. I would be the first elected Green on the prairies, and we would see true opposition in this province. The word opposition used to be something that everyone could see as a valid part of government. To oppose, it's an important part of how our government works. We've seen that Greens, as they're elected everywhere, help bring in good, loving, kind policies like a guaranteed livable income, expanding our Medicare so that it covers dental care, pharmacare, mental health care services, and elder care. These are things that all of us can believe in. I'd like you to vote for someone you can believe in. On October 26th, vote green and make history. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Naomi. Next up is Regina.